Internet, welcome to Board Game Theory, the show that talks all about Lizzie's favorite subject, lore! For years now, I've known Lizzie to prefer the lore of a game more than playing the game itself. She could go on and on about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Michael Afton, Springtrap, the FNAF movie, this stupid piece of garbage, and much, much more. But playing the games? She's maybe played to Night 3 in most of the FNAF games, although she did make it to Night 6 in FNAF 2, so good job there. But I'm the complete opposite. Games like GTFO have awesome gameplay, but with little to no story element to it, appealing to someone like me who has the mindset of, playing the game rather than listening to MatPat ramble for 37 hours. But as it's currently Lizzie's birthday, everyone say happy birthday to Lizzie. Go on. Happy birthday to... I want to bridge the gap between our two passions. My love for board games and her love for lore. Hence my new title as the Board Game Theorist, which is definitely not copied from anywhere else. But that got me thinking. What board game has enough lore to actually make a MatPat-inspired judgmental video about it? Yes, some board games really do have lore to them, an easy example being Near and Far, a story-based campaign game with an entire encounter book that comes with the game. In it, you'll find pages of deranged rabbit-eating butchers, weird women demanding you make them soup, and of course, the Red King, essentially a final boss for the game. But that wouldn't really make for an exciting video. Everything's already been figured out, and the story is pretty straightforward. There's no unsolved mystery here. I need something with less substance, less material to work with. Something that MatPat would spend years researching, investigating, and then finally make some random and broad assumption about the game's lore, connecting dots that were not supposed to be connected. Yes, Lizzie, you're allowed to laugh. Completely switching gears, even a game like Dominion, a game with glorious medieval theming, from pirates to potion making to the Dark Ages to whatever this stupid card is, still doesn't really have any story substance. Plus, it's a card game. And I'd like to stick to board games. It's, kinda in the title, What if I take a look at my favorite board game, Colt Express? Bandits, robbery, a train marshal, and plenty of old-timey Western theming to make any country bumpkin happy. But we can't pull anything together from that game, right? Right?
Wrong!
The game designers actually put together a few comics with each expansion, and the base game also has an introduction with some details that might be helpful. But I can't be the one to read through this. I don't have that Western-style voice to pull this off. I need someone Southern, someone rough and tumble, someone just a wee bit chunky, you know what I mean? I need Mr. Dick Rickham Gaming himself, Sebastian William Clark.
Whoa. Who you calling chunky?
Wasn't it literally you who said you make fat jokes because you're fat yourself?
Well,
Roll the clip!
And I don't call him a fatty to his face. I'd make it slight. I make funny jokes that make him not realize.
You're like, oh man, the ground shaking.
I gaslight him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He finds it funny. I find it funny. Everyone's laughing.
I just need
I
to.
was fat at one point, man. I get to make that joke.
Fuck.
They're tasteful jokes.
Hey, funny guy! I got a joke for you!
All right. You made your point. What can I do for you?
I'm making a video for Lizzie, and I need your country bumpkin voice to narrate the beginning of our story.
You what?
Just read the thing.
All right, okay, jeez. It's the 11th of July, 1899, 10 a.m. The Union Pacific Express has left Folsom, New Mexico, with 47 passengers on board. After a few minutes, the sound of rapid footsteps comes from overhead, followed by gunshots. Heavily armed bandits are mercilessly robbing honest citizens of their wallets and jewelry. Will the bandits be able to keep a cool head and dodge the flying bullets? Will they succeed in stealing the Nice Valley Coal Company's weekly payroll, stored in strong boxes that are closely watched by Marshal Samuel Ford? Only one bandit will achieve his goal, becoming the richest outlaw of the gang. Is that it? Can I go now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Great. Happy birthday, Lizzie. Dick Rickham out!
So now that he's gone, the theming for Colt Express is fantastic, as the Wild West is a staple theme across many forms of entertainment. Movies, TV shows, video games, and more have all had their fair share of Western beauty. But we're not here to talk about the theme, no, we want to talk about the lore! The base game is pretty simple, as players assume the role of bandits who ride up on horseback to the caboose of a train to rob the passengers at gunpoint. Yes, this is a game for ages 10 and up. As the introduction mentioned, there is a marshal patrolling the train, functioning as an NPC, forcing players to evade his movements to avoid being shot and wounded. But what is even more interesting is that in a future expansion, the marshal becomes a playable character with an alternate win condition. Enter Marshal and Prisoners, the second main expansion to Colt Express, introducing some major changes to the game including the prison car, prisoners to aid the bandits, and the previously mentioned marshal mechanics. In this variant, the marshal now has his own special objectives to complete in order to win the game. These range from making sure certain loot isn't stolen, prisoners don't escape, bandits get captured, among various other objectives. Before we continue, I also want to touch on the first major expansion, Horses and Stagecoach, which added, you guessed it, horses and a stagecoach. Wowee! In this expansion, a stagecoach travels alongside the train, just happening to go in the same direction, with the train moving faster than the stagecoach. The bandits can now hop from the train to the stagecoach and take passengers hostage. Again, this is for ages 10 and up. 9-year-olds, not allowed. But let's get back on track with our latest and greatest main expansion, Couriers and Armored Train. My gosh, this is my favorite way to play Colt Express, as this time 2 trains pass by each other simultaneously, and there's a huge co-op variant that completely changes how you play the original game. You set up this game by having 2 trains, one from the base game and one from this expansion, facing each other, allowing them to pass by each other each round of play. I think I should pause for a moment and specify that I'm not going into detail of how to play this game, as that isn't the point of the video. I'll leave that for Cam Sandwich to do. We're just here for the lore, right, Lizzie? Anyway, let's see how to set up this awesome new expansion. Step 1, we split into 2 even teams. Makes sense. Step 2, we add more pre-existing game components. Okay, sounds good. Step 3, set up the starting train. Alrighty, it's a little different than normal, but that's to be expected. Step 4, set up the armored train. Ooh, this time there's a new NPC, the Couriers. And, wait a second. Set up the starting train. Where's the Marshal? That's right, the Marshal is not used for this expansion, as this is made extremely clear in Step 5, stating that the Marshal cards are not used for this expansion. Huh. Well, why? Trust me, I know this game really well. You could easily include the Marshal cards and play this expansion just as easily. Nothing in this expansion blatantly goes against the original gameplay, making it impossible to play with the Marshal. Whereas you would not be able to play with the stagecoach or the horses with the armored train. I know that was a mouthful, so I'll make it simpler. Base game, perfect already. Horses and stagecoach, even better. Marshal and prisoners, also good and playable with or without the previous expansion. Couriers and armored train, the best so far, but makes both previous expansions unplayable together. Also, where the heck is the Marshal? Why would the game designers remove one of the most important and iconic parts of the game? This man literally has his own expansion, and he's even mentioned by name in the opening story Sebastian read. Marshal Samuel Ford. We even have a last name. He's that important. Every bandit only has a first name, with the twins not even having names, just being called the twins. Remember those comics I mentioned? Yeah, they don't give much of anything to work with. So I decided to thoroughly reread the rules to see if I could piece together some sort of a story here. And boy, oh boy, did I find some dirt on this Marshal. I'm really starting to feel like Matt Pat here. The previously mentioned Marshal cards are from the base game, and by playing said card, players are able to move the Marshal's pawn. In the base game, the Marshal is just an NPC, moved only by the players. The rules say that the Marshal is protecting the passengers and that he never goes up on the roof, something that the bandits actually do quite regularly. There is one other noteworthy mention, the Angry Marshal event card, showcasing the Marshal shooting at a bandit on the roof. So far so good, right? Let's keep moving. The first expansion introduced... Okay, I'm repeating myself. Let's just get to the point. Note, the Marshal never goes inside the stagecoach. He must stay inside the train to protect the passengers. Interesting. This makes lawful sense that the Marshal, hired for his job, should stay inside the train and not pursue any bandit that robs the stagecoach. Still on track, things are still making sense, but I kept reading and reminded myself that there's an event card that starts to make the Marshal look a little shifty. Whiskey flasks are a new game component that grants the bandits various abilities. Yes, kids, drinking alcohol allows you to move faster and perform more actions. Yes, this game is for ages 10 and up, because alcohol consumption starts at age 10. But that's not the point here. With this new game mechanic comes a new event card, a shot of whiskey for the Marshal. Uh-oh. He don't look so hot. If there is a whiskey flask on the Marshal's position, remove this token from the game. If it is a classic whiskey flask, the Marshal moves to the adjacent car, towards the back of the train. If it is an old whiskey flask, the Marshal moves on as many cars as necessary to reach the caboose. Each time the Marshal meets a bandit during this movement, the latter must flee on the roof and gets a neutral bullet card as a free gift as usual. Awesome. In other words, the Marshal goes ballistic. Against the bandits, of course. Yeah, not a great look for the Marshal, as he's supposed to be the passenger's golden boy protecting them. And yet he decides to drink alcohol on the job. What is this, Congress? Now granted, this is 1899. Not only is this not current day, but this is even before Prohibition. So drinking on the job was probably pretty normal, but there's more to uncover here. You see, the way a whiskey flask is played, your bandit drinks half of the flask to gain a benefit. The other half can be drunk on a later turn for an additional effect, and then the token is removed from the game. Since the Marshal card reads that you remove the whiskey flask from the game, that leads me to believe that the Marshal downed the whole thing, getting drunk and going ballistic. For the last time, this is for children 10 and up. 9-year-olds are not allowed to get drunk. 10-year-olds, totally honky-dory. Needless to say, we are now up to the Marshal's expansion. And before my brother rolls his eyes from me repeating myself yet again, let me just jump straight to my next point. In addition to elaborately detailing all the new mechanics for the Marshal player, there is also a small section of clarifications for mixing the two expansions. The Marshal and the Stagecoach. The Marshal can move inside or on top of the Stagecoach. He does not take a hostage when he enters the Stagecoach. I am very glad that the game designers decided to include this line of text, because I gotta tell you, I was lost without that little bit about him entering the Stagecoach. I mean, I thought, per the game rules, you are required to take a hostage. You have to. It doesn't matter that you're the Marshal. Hold them at gunpoint. That's how the game's played. Okay, jokes aside, this raises an interesting question. Just because the Marshal can physically go to the Stagecoach, why should he? Isn't his job to protect the passengers? Why is he leaving his post? And then it hit me. Samuel Ford, the man who has been employed by Union Pacific to protect the passengers and the Nice Valley Coal Company's weekly payroll, was fired from his job. Yes, fired. We have evidence that this man had anger issues, never attacking the passengers, but rather shooting at the bandits and yet never actually killing or capturing them. The bandits would always get away from him, even allowing other prisoners to escape from the prison car. Samuel Ford is also shown to have a drinking problem, as he's the only one who seems queasy when drinking a whiskey flask. And lastly, when playing as the Marshal, you're likely to abandon the train to chase after a bandit on the stagecoach, which would obviously violate your job responsibilities as train marshal. That's why he isn't shown in the most recent expansion, as he's been removed from the game because of his position being terminated. And so there you have it. For my first ever board game theory, I declare that Marshal Samuel Ford was fired for his incompetence during the last few train departures and his complete lack of effective policing. But hey, say it with me, Lizzie, that's just a theory, a board game theory. Thanks for watching, and happy birthday, Lizzie.